Cuyahoga County Finance and Budgeting Committee meeting for Thursday, February 23rd, 2017 to order, and ask that the clerk would please call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent. Mr. Hairston. Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schron.
Here.
Ms. Brown.
Here.
We have a quorum, and I'd like the record to reflect that Ms. Baker and Mr. Tuma are in attendance.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I understand that we have one person signed in for public comment, and this person is speaking on an item unrelated to the agenda, which we normally have at the end of the meeting, but in order to accommodate his schedule, we're going to have him speak at this time. So would you read the name, please?
Mr. Matthew Frankel.
Okay. You have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
I invite everyone in the room to eavesdrop while I directly address Chairman Miller. Hello again, I'm Matthew Frankel, and I spoke to you this past Tuesday in regards to the proposal for renovating the Q. I'm speaking directly to you because today you're wearing the hat of Chairperson of the Finance and Budget Committee. First, I want you to know I'm here on my lunch break from work, and I will have to leave shortly after I deliver my remarks. Please don't interpret my premature exit as lack of interest. If I didn't care, I wouldn't be here right now. As you know, Greater Cleveland Congregations is demanding a community equity fund be established of equal size in our investment to the Q. And for this, I wholeheartedly agree. Today, though, I'm here to focus on the $17 million chunk of the public funding that you know and I know can be readily repurposed away from the Q deal and instead invested elsewhere. Right now, it's slated to go to the Q. Essentially, it means $17 million Dan Gilbert won't have to spend on his business. It means $17 million of our money going straight into his already huge pockets. You know much better than I do that our county faces great challenges, and I'm glad that our county has been active to solve many of them. For example, I was happy to read about the county's new Skill Up workforce development program. But you also know that there are plenty of great ideas that have yet to be realized. And last night, I heard one that I really liked. It was yours. Since I couldn't make it in the room for last Tuesday's meeting, I tried to watch it on YouTube, but it wasn't uploaded yet. So instead, I watched you wear your other hat as chair of the Regional Transportation Advisory Subcommittee during the meeting last Valentine's Day. And after discussing the state's transportation budgets and public square bus situation, you suggested 3 ways in which the local community can help improve our transportation system. They were 1, increasing efficiency with the resources we already have. 2, collaboration with our private sector and nonprofit community. And 3, finding additional local public money. I'm completely on board with that, and this is the perfect opportunity. We have Dan Gilbert, a billionaire, asking us to finance a building with his company's name on it. It's about time he contributes something back. And we have $17 million of public funds that you know full well would be better invested in the RTA than in a big, shiny window. Now, I'm not saying that's what we should or should not do with the $17 million. There are many great ideas to be considered, including yours. But you know about the opportunity cost. For every dollar we spend on the Q, it means we're not spending that dollar on something of far greater importance. I must ask, since you are the chairperson of the Finance and Budget Committee, with our county's budget already extremely strained and with great needs in our community, how can you justify handing millions of dollars to a billionaire? Is that really the best we can do? You know that your actions, and in this case your votes, speak louder than your words, and so I'm asking 2 things. First, don't approve the deal with the Q as it currently stands. Second, make a better one. Make it something we can be proud of. Chairperson Miller, we're counting on you for your leadership. Don't let us down. Thanks.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the February 6th, 2017 meeting. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the minutes are approved from the February 6, 2017 meeting. And The next item on the agenda is the one resolution for today, and that's Resolution 2017-0029. May, would you please read that into the record?
Resolution 2017 is 0029, amending the 2016-2017 biennial operating budget and capital improvements program for 2017 by revising projects, estimated costs, and schedule.
Okay, thank you very much. And just by way of a little history, prior to the county's passage of the financial policies legislation, the capital improvements program was included once every 2 years in the budget, but generally we didn't see too much of it elsewhere. But the financial policies legislation envisioned that maintaining the capital improvements plan would be more of an ongoing kind of effort that was updated as necessary, and this legislation is consistent with that, and we appreciate your taking that directive to heart and following up on that. So at this point, I would ask the director to come forward and if you could just run through with us what changes are being proposed in the capital improvements plan.
Go for a lifeline.
Whoever wants to present it is fine.
So Maggie Keenan, Office of Budget and Management. I'll give just a brief overview. We're submitting this on behalf of Public Works because the CIP is part of the biennial operating budget. The dollar amounts in the revised plan that we've submitted are consistent with the adopted budget for 2017. So the amounts in the plan that you're getting have not changed. It doesn't impact the budget, but the projects have changed, and I'll let Director Dever talk about that.
Okay.
Good morning or good afternoon, members of council. Thanks for allowing us to come forward today. Michael Dever with the Department of Public Works. And also with me is Matthew Reimer. He's in charge of our facilities, both the architectural and the maintenance aspect of all the county facilities. So thanks for allowing us to come before you today. I'm not sure on how you'd like to proceed, Councilman Miller, but I have the resolution before me and the exhibit.
What I would like is if you could just tell us what items have been deleted for how much money and what items have been added for how much money, and if there's items that it's the same item but the dollar amount has changed, tell us what the change is.
Okay. So what I have in front of me, and I think it's a similar document that you currently have, it's a spreadsheet to showing the comparables from the 16-17, yes. Where the first item on there is HPG Design and Construction Amendment, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
$1 million?
Yeah, that's $1 million. So that is, that item is specifically related to the HPG project itself. And as you know, we issued an award for that project early in 2016 to do a reconstruction of the facility. And that job is primarily rehabbing the concrete in the facility. As any of you know that have been down there, there's a lot of concrete repair that's taking place, and we were going through an investigative process. We were repairing as we went. Now we are on to the lower floors, and we've identified additional repairs. As you chip the concrete, you identify more and more issues. So we've added $1 million to the budget to cover those costs. We are still not at the end of that project. We are on the lower floors now, be it down on levels 3 and 4 right now. And we anticipate that there is going to be a change coming before you within maybe another 3 to 4 weeks. We're still in our investigative process on that, but we hope to give you a complete picture of where we are with that within the next, I would say before the end of March. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, but for right now, we have $1 million that we need in the budget for those repairs. The next item on there, environmental controls, I believe. It makes note of sanitary. Hopefully I'm on the right document still. In regards to, there's a few items that'll be listed here, both sanitary, and they'll make reference to York Road Yard and to the Brook Park Yard. Some of those items, we are choosing to defer them into a later year, just because we are, and I think I brought this to council's attention before, we're looking at a possibility of consolidating our maintenance facilities, which would include those 3 yards. And so we're hoping to have some information before you in the very near future if we're going to proceed with that project, or we're going to go and stay at the current locations, and then we would have to spend on those capital repairs. So that's the intent there. The next item on there is the elevator upgrades at Metzenbaum. We've made a decision to defer that item also. We've done some repairs to the elevator, and rather than a complete upgrade, I think the repairs we've made to them at this time, when this budget was created back obviously in 15, we don't believe that we need to go forward with that in 17. Next item there is HVAC units at 1642 Lakeside. That item is still on the budget.
It's a slightly revised amount, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, it was 135,000 and it's now 144,000.
That's
so
right.
Just a
And-
very
and-
slight revision.
Right, and as you recall, this was created back in 2015, the original estimate on that project.
Okay,
Next item there is that York Road improvements. Once again, that's related to the consolidated maintenance facility that I hope to bring forward, either to go forward with or to not. The next item there is a rather large item, $5.5 million. That was really, when we put this in 15, it was a placeholder because we had started doing some assessments of some of the buildings at the time. And we were getting a better handle on what improvements we needed to do in the upcoming years. We preferred to just put a placeholder in, just to have those dollars accounted for. And that's why we're back at you this year to say, look, we've clearly identified what items we need to move forward with. So you'll see that dollar figure being basically eaten up with the projects that are identified.
so that 5.5 million is being taken out, and instead of that 5.5 million, then there's these various other smaller project items that you have listed.
That's correct.
Okay.
Next item, building assessment studies at $200,000. That, you see that item came off there also. Next is administrative repairs and upgrades. That's related to this facility. We didn't have any capital dollars set aside for any work that was being done in this facility. And typically what we do is if any work is done if there's programmatic changes in any of the departments typically have to account for those dollars for any of the improvements that you may need to do to their space. But we do have common areas within the building here. So we needed some dollars set aside so that we can do repairs or upgrades or do changes to the building. I can make reference to some solar blinds that we had put up on this facility that weren't originally accounted for in the building. So we had to identify dollars, and it was becoming difficult. So what we've decided to do is put some dollars aside that we have available for any of the work that's being done in this facility. Next item there, animal shelter HVAC replacement. As you can see, that's one of those items we filled in. Next, entrance ADA upgrades at the Jane Edna Hunter building. As you may note, the Southgate facility that we closed, HHS ended up closing back in the fall. Those personnel ended up moving into the Jane Edna Hunter building. So we have a lot more foot traffic coming into the front of that building. So now we're trying to accommodate that public access into the building, which includes an ADA accessibility. So that's that project specifically. Next item there is penthouse ladders, ejection pumps and grinders. That's items that weren't included in the original building. The penthouse ladders, we didn't have those put in. And then the injection pumps and grinders, Matt may be able to speak on that item. Matt, if you'd like.
Good afternoon, Matt Reimer for Department of Public Works. So this is at the Juvenile Justice Center. Specifically, these are items that will help our trades folks better access all the mechanical spaces that are needed to, as we get wear and tear on that facility, to access equipment and make repairs and replacements. The ejection pumps and grinders, it's a pretty harsh environment with the attached detention center, and so we've seen a lot of wear and tear on the pumps that have that are taking both the sanitary waste as well as the basement stormwater waste and put it into the sanitary system. So we see a lot of wear and tear on those, and we need to replace those pumps. So that's what that item represents.
I believe that item was actually addressed at the Board of Control not too long ago. That's where you may have seen that item. Next is solar blinds for the windows at the office tower at the JJC. That is, we did a recommissioning study at the end of the 5 years. We're beyond 5 years in that facility now. And it's temperature control really that the reason why we're moving forward with that item. The next item is building and system repairs at the medical examiner's office. Next, old courthouse ADA upgrades, phase 2. We've already started on some of those upgrades to that facility. Some washrooms were improved upon. Old courthouse courtroom renovation. This is Judge, I believe it's Judge Laura Gallagher's chambers. The court is contributing to that also for some improvements. We had some water damage to that room, and now we're doing the repairs. Domestic relations court, also programmatic issues there. They needed to serve their customers, so they needed a counter basically installed and a few other things. We can get into detail on that. Soldiers and sailors, masonry repairs. We've got, that's related with Soldiers and Sailors Monument. There's some water infiltration issues in the basement. There were some improvements done to the Soldiers and Sailors Monument a few years ago, including mechanical systems, and the water intrusion wasn't adequately addressed when that took place, and now it's wearing on the boiler system in the basement there. So we've set some dollars aside to try and to alleviate that water infiltration. Next is the Virgil Brown roof replacement project.
That's unchanged.
That's the same, that's right. Mm-hmm. The next item is the Halley. This is the Halley storage facility. This is a land acquisition for a parking lot. Unfortunately, when we moved forward with that project, there wasn't an accounting for parking. And now when we're bringing additional staff down there to that area, there's issues with parking. Lucky enough, we've been able to identify a parking lot in very close proximity, and we're looking to purchase that lot and then in turn do an improvement to that lot. It'll tie into a leased lot that we're currently using so that we won't have to add additional security or anything like that.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah.
Mr. Miller, on that that was a sticking point, and myself and the previous president of council who pushed this were not happy with the Halley building, and one of our big issues was parking. We were assured, not by you, but your predecessor, that the parking would be sufficient. We disagreed vehemently, and we were yet again assured that parking would not be an issue. Now there's $1 million tag on this. And again, I go to your predecessor, not you. And again, as you recall, I think, this was not our pick of buildings. It was not ideal. It was old. It was antiquated. The money we had to put into it was ridiculous. And a great concern was the parking. And here we are spending $1 million more on parking. Am I to understand that correctly?
Yes, ultimately with the purchase and then obviously the improvement to the space. The building was originally planned for, obviously, the back offices for the Board of Election, which are going to continue to operate there. And then archives was going to move into the facility onto floor 4. The upper 2 floors were primarily storage floors. And that's the intent, is to utilize it as such. The opportunity for the parking, as we saw in the most recent elections that just took place, is that becomes the central facility, not over on 30th and Euclid, where the board people sit. Most of the activity is taking place in the back office over here.
Well,
Also-
maybe this isn't the place for this further discussion, but I think, need to have further discussion on this, because everything you're saying, we brought up, Board of Elections at the time backed up the fact that that would be a great place and they wouldn't need any more parking. And our argument was, on election evening, you're definitely gonna need parking, and they had some rigmarole on how it was gonna be great. Bottom line is, we didn't want it, they did, we're there, now I'm getting $1 million tag. And if that's gonna happen, then I want the Board of Elections to look at this. Because this was not our pick. This was
Understood.
not our, and again, this is not on you. This was your predecessor who shoved this literally down our throats, and I wasn't happy about it, but we had to rely on the experts. So if we could just, I don't wanna,
Let me just bring up one more point too, though. Now with the full utilization of the Jane Edna Hunter building, with the transfer of those, which is on 40th also at Euclid, between Euclid and Chester, that there'll be parking needs for that facility also. So this is actually solving a couple of problems for us. So I somewhat misspoke when just saying it's exclusively for this Halley facility. Because right now in the lot that's next door to it, many of the people at Jane Edna Hunter, where we have to provide parking for those personnel, are parking at in that adjacent lot to the one we're about to purchase. So with the additional personnel coming into Jane Edna Hunter, we think this is the wise thing to do and move forward with it now, and especially since it became available.
I don't disagree, it's probably a wise thing to do, but again, we can discuss this further. I don't wanna take up our time here.
Understood. Understood. Also, just in relation to the Halley building, that project is ongoing, and we intend to have that completed, substantially completed in the summer. Matt brought a few photos, just unfortunately, I don't have anything to put up on a PowerPoint for you, but to distribute a few photos so that you'll be able to see kind of an update of what's going on at that facility itself. We're moving forward full steam ahead, as this council gave us the allowance to move forward with the construction of that project. So it's moving full steam ahead right now.
Councilman Jones.
Where is the parking lot actually located? Is it physically connected to the land?
It's on actually Chester Avenue. There's currently a leased lot that's on the south. It's on the southeast corner of Perkins and East 40th. And the Halley warehouse is on the northwest corner. So the northwest corner of, so it's adjacent to the parking lot that's currently there.
Sits behind the bank.
Yeah,
There's a
and the
PNC
building
Bank.
that was formerly there was tore down, so it's just a grass field now. So we're trying to come up with the most cost-effective way to just convert it into a parking space then.
It's a little walk for the Jane Edna Hunter employees. You have to cross Chester and,
That's true, but the Jane Edna Hunter employees are parking in that southeast lot on the corner of Perkins and 40th also. So, I mean, this is the exact,
Okay.
it's tied into that lot.
okay, thank you.
I'm not that familiar with this, but how many additional parking slots are you proposing?
I think it was, is it 100?
It's close to 100, yes.
Close to 100, yeah. We're developing a schematic design on it right now.
What about 100?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's right.
Do you want to ask a question? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we can get back to you with that exact number, councilperson.
Who owns that right now?
The Bricklayers Union Hall.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Please proceed.
Okay, sorry. Okay, then continuing down, we have the Human Services Fit Study. That was basically a pass-through put onto our budget. The HHS is moving forward with the fit study, and it's supposed to go be issued this Friday. It's going to be the RFP for that.
And what is a fit study?
So I have a brief.
And it says, oh, CTW, that's countywide, okay.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to that document. I just had, oh, here it is, I'm sorry. Okay, so the county anticipates to do a phase one scope of services to include a review, assessment, recommendations regarding organizational and asset capacities for HHS real estate portfolio, including but not limited to the task outline, which includes review and provide performance measures and benchmarking, review and provide best practice methodology related to portfolio management strategy based on public and private sector industry standards of similar agencies. And I would say that Director Pristow would probably be best to speak on the item himself, but I'm just pulling the document itself, and I could distribute that to you if you'd like to.
And can you tell us why in the original document, this was listed as $1,350,000 in the general fund, and in the new document, it's listed for a much smaller amount, a third as much, $450,000, but it's listed in the PA fund of Health and Human Services.
Right. I don't know why. At first, we got an estimated cost, and it was in collaboration with HHS, and so that's where the 1.3 started at. And after further analysis on who's out there to do this and how much it would cost, that's when the number came down.
And why is it that it was originally listed under the general fund and now it's listed under the PA fund?
I'm not sure of that, and it should have been a PA fund, obviously, item.
Ms. Keenan?
So he's correct, it should have been in the PA fund. It's a health and human service expense. I don't know how it got in the general fund originally, but it should not have been a general fund originally. So when we did the budget update for 2017, it transferred over. HHS essentially pays for this, so we also can draw down reimbursement for all of their expenses.
And was this item included in the 2017 update?
Yes.
And in the 2017 update, was it listed as $1,350,000 in the general fund?
No, it's listed as the plan that we're submitting now, so it's in the PA funds, HHS/PA funds.
So in the general fund update, it was already, in the 2017 update, it was already updated to this 450 in the PA funds.
That's
Is
correct.
that
That's part of why the cost to the general fund for the plan in total has gone down from what you originally approved in 2015.
Okay, fine. Okay. Ms. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this an annual, or how often is this performed?
No, this is just the one time. I mean, after you get the study, and I believe you're going to be hearing from Director Pristow in the near future in regards to this. So unfortunately, I would beg to defer to Mr. Pristow so he can speak on the matter himself.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm still interested to see how we overestimated this by just under $1 million of the cost that it would take to do this. And it was truly just pick a number, or was there some discussion had with someone maybe in this field about the potential cost to do this?
Yeah, once again, I would say go back to HHS and try and get
Sure,
that.
okay.
Because the scope of what they were looking for may have shrunk somewhat from what they
be various
originally
reasons, okay.
intended. So, but once again, I can give you a copy of the RFP, and we'll get a copy and make sure you get copies of it, okay?
Thank you.
And was the general gist of this to see whether the space that we're currently using for HHS facilities is well suited to the services that need to be provided? It's kind of a question of how well the use of space fits. Is that the kind of basic
That's
idea?
part of it, yes, but and consolidation of, since Pristow now oversees the group and he is consolidating it somewhat and multiple services under one roof, I think this is going to provide the blueprint of how we go forward in the future with HHS services.
Okay. With no other questions on that, please proceed.
Okay. Proceeding down, preventative maintenance for high voltage switchgear, that hasn't changed. General construction management and testing. Matt, do you want to speak on that item specifically?
So yes, this was a new item that primarily based on some of my input. What this contract will do is provide professional services, contract availability. It was intended to be 2 contracts to be able to meet our construction independent testing needs for when we need concrete testing, asbestos testing, or some specialized third-party testing that we'd like to have on our construction contracts. In addition, it would provide us with a scope and a availability of contract to meet any construction management services we may need, where we field inspection or other areas that we may need to supplement our in-house staff.
We'll keep going down. This is an annual price, the painting item, carpeting item.
They're unchanged.
Unchanged somewhat. The carpeting item did reduce by $100,000. General architecture engineering services, that did increase. And that's just, the reason why we did increase that a number was so that we had professional services available to us, depending on the discussion with, be it the Justice Center and other things. So we had some resources available to us.
Yes. Councilman Tron.
Is there anything in there for the queue?
No, there isn't.
So nothing, no architectural fees are in there to look at design or consideration?
Not at all, no.
Okay, so the only thing, we do have, you say the Justice Center is being looked at in that regard? Are we doing any kind of oversight in regards to Metro General with that?
No, we're not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Continuing down the path, general mechanical, electrical, plumbing, A&E services, we did increase that by $150,000. And then special projects, emergencies, time sensitive, any issues. As you know, these buildings are old and anything can come up throughout the course of the year. So we're just budgeting some dollars that are available. Obviously, we would be coming back for appropriation authority.
Okay. And on the airport items?
Yeah, in relation to the airport items, the project is moving forward. We're in phase 2 is about to commence in the springtime, the 15 million. So the general fund impact is, for phases 3 and 4 is obviously $1.5 million. The other dollars are coming from both the federal FAA And then also the state has been contributing also. So primarily 90% of it is being funded by outside sources.
So these numbers are just our share, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And this total cost for the general fund of $8,521,000, is that the same amount that we have budgeted in the 2017 update? It is, okay. And the 3,100,000, is that the same amount we have it's the same, okay. Any, is there any need that this piece of legislation needs to be passed under second reading suspension, or does that not matter?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, yes, if we could move forward with it, it's obviously the projects, we're into 17 already, and we'd like to move forward. There's certain projects we're going into design phases with, putting these consultant contracts out. So yes, if we could, please.
Are we not able to proceed on the projects until the CIP is updated?
Yeah, I would, in regards to HPG, yes, the $1 million, we could use those dollars as soon as possible. As I had said, through our continued investigations, there's more concrete repairs, so we're trying to stay ahead of that instead of the contractor stop work on it. So
That's really a question for council. So we would come before council to appropriate all the projects on an individual basis. So you will have a chance to look at them and approve them project by project, but we would like to have the council approve the CIP as a whole before we move forward. So that's why we would ask to have it approved under suspension.
Okay, and Councilman Schwan.
Yeah, I hate to come back to the architectural, but when it went from 250 to 800, what all is in the architectural fees that are moving? I know you said we have a lot of architectural deeds, and then kind of off the cuff, it also said, oh, no, by the way, the Justice Center. What does that mean when you say, oh, by the way, the Justice Center? How much of that $800,000 is for Justice Center architectural?
well, actually, it's to have some resources available if we are to move forward with any type of, the Justice Center is in a discussion phase, and I don't believe it's, we are going to need those architectural services early this year, obviously, but it could be, a decision could be made on that facility towards the end of the year. But it's just not the Justice Center itself. We have other needs,
Just what of the 800,000, give me a percentage ratio of the 800,000 is Justice Center. I understand you have other needs. We'll leave those off the table.
Right.
What of the $800,000 is being allocated for architectural fees?
20%, I think, is.
Okay, so we're talking $160,000 is going towards the Justice Center. Still a fairly, is that a correct number? That's 20% of 800,000.
Yes, sir. Again, Matt Reimer for Department of Public Works. So these contracts are also 3 years in duration. So we could be executing our entire 2017 capital plan and even into our 2018 capital plan with these design dollars to move forward.
Okay, and are we looking at this $160,000 to design something on its current site or to move it to a different site? Or, I mean, what's the purpose of when we're spending $160,000 on architectural design fees? Because quite frankly, I think this body up here got a little shell shocked that we were being hit with something over at the Q, and obviously that'd been worked on for 2.5, 3 years. We found out from the witness when they took this. I'd like to know so we don't get another surprise. All of a sudden one day somebody walks in here and says, "Oh, by the way, here's this project." So I'd like to know what are we getting? You say it's a 3-year design function going on with $160 million, $160,000. Sorry about it. Going into this, what are we looking at with those design? Because there's a scope of work someplace in that document, I assume. And what is the scope of work?
No, it's
actually looking
just general services is what we're looking for. So we're going to be bringing on the likes of any architectural service that's out. Besides the other buildings, obviously need improvements too. So
Not
we're
talking about those.
Understood, but we have not expended any dollars in relation to design work on the Justice Center And the intent is not to go down that path just yet. This is more for the other facility. I just bring that to your attention because at the last finance meeting, you asked a question about, is there monies available for if Justice Center planning or anything like that? So what we're trying to do is have some dollars available. So if there's a decision made to move forward, even some very high-level preliminary planning, that's all I'm looking for, is to have some dollars in the bank here available so that we can.
And I don't object to it, I just wanted to know what the functionality of it is. I assume that this is all pure planning dollars. What do you need for how many spaces and how many jails and cells and how much for the court and things like that, without necessarily getting down into the weeds as far as location or design or anything like that? I assume this is still program dollars versus design dollars.
That's right, program dollars, and I'm sorry.
That's okay, I assumed that's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Director, I'm going to ask a big picture question. Deferred maintenance is not a good thing. The idea would be that we're making enough of an effort to at least keep even with the various maintenance needs that we have, and if possible, gaining on it a little bit. And my question is whether this plan provides enough to be done in 2017 to keep us even, or are we falling behind, or are we gaining on it a little bit?
Well, the hope is that we're gaining on it, and that's, we bring qualified people in to be able to oversee this and to make sure that we're making the proper decisions so that we don't have surprises. And like I make reference there that the item about special project requests are emergency time sensitive. The intent is not to be coming at you with surprises all the time. It's to have a carefully laid out plan over the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years of where you're going in these facilities and making sure you're doing adequate preventative maintenance on them. So we feel like this budget gives us those tools now. We're going to continue assessing the facilities and refining the plan. So it's much like in 18. I don't have a 100% plan of everything I'm going to need then, because as we go through this year, we're going to start seeing things that maybe they need to be added to the overall facility plan. We feel pretty good about what we have before you today.
And is the capital improvements plan for years later than 2017 unchanged, except for that some of these items that are deferred are moved back into a later year? In this piece of legislation, are we basically only making changes for 2017?
That's correct. Well, we are, but at the same time, those few items that I had told I'm pushing out to 18, those will be in 18 unless something else comes up. And at the same time, as you go through these plannings or a programmatic look at, be it the Justice Center or any other facility, those may come into the picture at a later time. But as for right now, I'm not expecting anything additional.
Okay. Councilman Schron?
Only because Councilman Miller was bringing this up about maintenance and service and things of that nature. You heard our young man speak about or ask about the $16-17 million that I assume he's talking about that's coming off of the hotel savings, potentially the tunnel, and you being the person who we look to as the expert on our facilities and utilization, you do not see a need for that for any of the purposes of the Halley building as it's finishing up, as the underground tunnel that's being done, and the connection over to the garage.
Yeah, actually, the tunnel is it's moving along nicely. They're about to switch over into the next phase, moving across the street because we can only block off half the street at a time. We think we have enough dollars in that to complete that project, and that won't be completed until close to the end of summer.
So we're taking our reserves before you know if there's any gremlins in that other half of the road, and we're redistributing those. Is that what I'm hearing,
Well, Maggie, I don't
at least in this plan? And you're the one who has the responsibility to finish this project up with those dollars.
That's right.
So the 16 million, you're talking about the 1/4% reserves?
Yes.
Yes, that's not draining the reserves in that fund, but the tunnel, if it comes in on budget, is fully funded right now. If something happens that they run over budget, we would have to approve additional dollars coming out of the reserves, general fund or 1/4%.
But if the reserve, if that $16-17 million has been allocated for another purpose, i.e. the queue, where will that come from?
Well, the Q deal as it is being proposed, though, it's I think, I'm trying to picture it in my head, but it's 2 million from 2016, I think $1.5 million from 17, and it's only, it's $1 million or $1.5 million a year, so we're not pulling the full 16 million out of the reserves at the same time. If the deal goes through, I would recommend that we put a reserve in there so that it's clearly earmarked, but that fund generates revenue every year.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions by any of my colleagues further about the capital improvements program? I feel comfortable in moving forward. Would somebody like to make a motion to recommend this for consideration for second reading suspension?
So move.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to refer Resolution 2017-0029 to the full council with a recommendation to leadership that it be placed on the agenda for second reading suspension. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no, and it is recommended.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. In our item of discussion, I just wanted to provide an opportunity if anybody had any further questions or follow-up on the 2016 year-end financial report. And I'm gonna just ask one, and it's a follow-up of the testimony we had at the beginning of the meeting and Councilman Schwan's question. It's regarding the money that's being proposed to be taken from the 1/4% sales tax and a couple of other revenue sources that if we are not doing this, ultimately these monies could be used in the general fund if necessary. Is that correct? Some of them could be. Yes.
So the proposed arena deal includes the 1/4% fund, in total 16 million over, I think, through when the 1/4% sales tax sunsets in 2027. And then it includes an increment on sales tax. So they're looking at the base year of 2014, saying that Q generated $250,000 in sales tax. This deal would be funded in part by any sales tax that's generated by the Q above and beyond that base year of 2014. That would go toward debt service. In 2016, I believe the Q generated about $600,000 in sales tax, so it could be around $400,000 a year. And then there's admissions tax money that would go into it as well. Now, right now, the county does use admissions tax, that's a city tax, to pay debt service, existing debt service on the gateway bonds. If that money's not available, the general fund would pick that up.
Okay, so now, as I understand it, the admissions tax revenue is used per joint agreement between the county and the city.
That's correct.
And is currently being used just for debt service. And so,
It will so a portion of the admissions tax will continue to be used toward debt service. The arena deal is proposing playoffs-related admissions tax only.
okay, so I'm presuming that even if we didn't have the Q deal, that this particular revenue would not be available for the general fund.
That's correct.
So I'm gonna focus on the other two,
Okay.
and on those two, I get the sense that it's slightly front-loaded and that in the first few years it could amount to 2.5 to 3 million total, and in the later years it's a little more like 2 million. Are those reasonable numbers?
From the 1/4% fund, I don't have them right in front of me, but from the 1/4% fund, I believe it starts in 16. In 2016, it's $2 million. In 2017, it's either $1 million or $1.5 million, and it stays in $1 million or $1.5 million for the remaining years. For the sales tax, it's the same. They're just looking at that base year of the $250,000. Anything above that goes toward the deal.
And so how can they take money for 2016? We're already into 2017.
That would come out of the reserves.
Okay, so it would be, there would be an initial loss that's 2 million larger,
It's
because we'd have
2
both.
million and change, so if it's approved, it would be 2 million and change, because it's 2 million from the 1/4%, and then I think it's for 350 or 400,000 from the sales tax increment for 16.
So that means that initially we'd have a loss of general fund accessibility for 2 years, for 2016 and 2017 in the first year.
Right,
So,
the 16 share would have to come out of the reserves.
okay. So and am I correct that this will reduce any capacity we might have to transfer money from the 1/4% sales tax to the general fund as we've done in the past? Is that correct?
It would, although we have been anticipating a $5.5 million transfer. That's what we're transferring in 17, and we're assuming that in our estimates going forward. And the $1 million, we can still take the hit, for lack of a better term, with the $1 million, assuming that $5.5 million transfer. It would prohibit us from transferring anything, potentially transferring more than $5.5 million.
Councilman Schwan?
So just to put a real pin in the map as to what it is, we're retroactively making a payment for last year under this deal.
That's correct.
And then we're making this payment for this year's activities under the deal too. So we're paying, this very first year, we're going to actually be paying double.
That's correct.
Well,
It's not exactly double because the amounts are
Yeah,
different,
close
but you're
enough.
paying for 2 years.
You're paying for 2 years.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I'll be listening for that on Tuesday night with that same clarity that you just gave us on Tuesday evening or Tuesday afternoon.
We gave you a preview of the questions that we're going to ask you next Tuesday.
I thought we were talking about 2016
today.
today.
When this room is going to be full of people and you're going to want to be precise and really, so you'll be ready and prepared. So
Yes.
that'll be good. Okay. Any other questions regarding the 2016 year end? Hearing none? Okay, thank you very much. Any miscellaneous business? Not hearing any? Anyone signed in for public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Motion to adjourn? Second, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? Thank you very much, everybody.